Hello, today we're going to talk about the roots of the Cold War and the beginning of the war. I think you may have noticed that I have the same shirt on in all of these videos so far. I'm not wearing the same thing every single day. I'm actually filming all these on one day or over a few days, but the first three or four of them I'll be wearing the same shirt. So just I'm not that disgusting. I don't wear the same clothes every day when school's not in session. All right, but we're going to be talking about the roots of the Cold War. What happened that brought this about? Okay, and today we're only going to go through about 8 slides. I think I wrote on your page that you don't have to go through the rest of the slideshow. We're just going to go over the first 8. So here we go. If you look at the photograph on this second slide, you see the Americans on the left and the Soviets on the right. What do you see happening there? What are their expressions like? Do they look like they like each other? Do they look like they trust each other? And my answer would be, I don't think so. If you have just won the largest war in the history of the earth, they could be jumping up and down and hugging, and they're very far away from each other. They're reaching out and they're shaking hands, kind of to be cordial, but they don't look like they like each other. And this is because the U.S. and the Soviet Union are the two countries left that have had the least amount of damage done to them by this war. And they're very different in the way that they do things. Stalin is a dictator. We have a democracy. Truman's in charge. And just the way we do things is very, very different. We don't trust each other. We've been spying on them. They've been spying on us throughout the war, even though we were on the same side. And both wanted to come out as the number one power after World War II. So they're competing with each other. And in competition, you don't always like one another. Okay, and so this is kind of where we are at the beginning of this. So if you look, the next slide lists differences between the two countries. We're a democracy, they're communist. We have a capitalist economy, they're socialist. We have lots of freedom, they have no freedom. We are Western influence, they're an Eastern influence. We're competing for power, they're competing for status. We want world trade, they want safety and control of everything around them. We instigate the arms race by using the atomic bomb. They use spies to catch up. Most of Europe was basically a wreck after World War II, and both the U.S. and the Soviet Union wanted to help the countries that had been ruined, because if we help you, then you're more likely to listen to us. Okay, and so the Soviet Union and the United States both come up with very similar plans. The American plan is called the Marshall Plan. The Soviet plan is called the Molotov Plan. And all this does is increase the tension. If you look, they basically do the same thing, the Molotov Plan and the Marshall Plan. Both loan out money. Both are going to charge interest, although we don't make them pay most of theirs back. If you borrowed money from us, you had to agree to become a democracy. If you borrowed money from the Soviet Union, you must agree to become communist. And the money we loan out, they had to buy goods from us. The money that the Soviets loaned out, you had to buy from them. Okay, and this is going to lead to the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, Alliance, and the Warsaw Pact, which you've seen on that map that I've had you do already, the countries that are on each side. Both sides were trying to spread their way of life, and Both sides wanted influence. After a couple of countries fell, or there was fighting between communist um, supporters and Democratic supporters, um, Harry Truman decided to use money and our military to stop the spread of communism. We were never going to invade the Soviet Union and try to end communism there, but we wanted to stop it from spreading. And so we're going to use money and our military to do that. And that's later going to get us involved in the Korean War and Vietnam War and places like that. Both sides started building up atomic bombs and later hydrogen bombs. We said we wanted enough of them to make sure the Soviet Union wouldn't attack us, and they basically said the same thing. So we go from atomic bombs to hydrogen bombs to nuclear bombs to a race to see who is going to be in space first. Okay, all this did was create fear. If you look at the cartoon here, there's a house sitting on top of an atomic bomb, and it's teetering between world control and world destruction. Okay, and that's what people were facing at this time. Okay, the first kind of crisis between the U.S. and the Soviet Union came in Berlin. The city of Berlin is the capital of Germany. It was divided up just like Germany was divided at the end of World War II. The Soviet Union got a part of it, and the U.S., Britain, and France got another part. And so those parts are going to add together to be West Germany, and the Soviets are going to have East Germany. And the same thing happens with the capital city. It's in the eastern part, but it gets divided. There's West Berlin and there's East Berlin. And Stalin doesn't like what we're doing, and so he basically blockades West Berlin. It's in East Germany, so he doesn't let boats or trains or anything deliver supplies to that city. And he thought that we wouldn't send military because we didn't want to start a war. And he thought we would give up. And then he would now control the whole city. Well, that's not what we do. We begin flying in supplies, basically making them be the aggressors. We're just going to fly and drop off supplies. So for over a year, a plane lands in Berlin with supplies every 30 seconds. A plane lands and it's unloaded, and this happens for over 365 days. So if you want to do the math, I don't have a calculator in front of me, but maybe you can do it. That's 365 days, and if there's 2 planes a minute, that means 120 planes an hour times 24 hours times 365 days. That's how many planes landed. All right, so you could do the math and figure out what that is. Maybe that'll be one of your questions. All right, so the U.S. had to decide what to do. We decided to fly in those things, and eventually Stalin gave up. But this is later going to lead to the Berlin Wall being built, and all this does is intensify the Cold War. We win the battle, but we make the war even worse. Okay, and that is where we'll stop today. But these are the beginnings of the Cold War. The questions I want you to answer. How many planes landed at during the Berlin crisis, the Berlin airlift? So you can kind of do the math and figure that one out. So that's question number 1. Question number 2. What were some of the major differences between the U.S. and the Soviet Union? There's a list of them in the slides for you. What were the biggest 3 in your opinion? Okay, biggest differences between the two. And This next one is just kind of an opinion question as well. Um, is there anything that you think that could have been done to avoid the Cold War? To maybe usher in a time of peace instead of what basically became a confrontation. It wasn't a big war that was going on, but it was a confrontation between the U.S. and the Soviet Union over which of their way of life was better. Okay, so I want you to think, was there another option to that? All right, and I will see you next time.